The apartment smells wrong. It's a sterile mix of lemon-scented cleaner and the ghost of cardboard boxes. Tyler moved his last things out yesterday. There was no screaming match, no dramatic door slamming. Just a quiet, clinical efficiency that felt more brutal than any fight could have. He left the place cleaner than when we moved in, which somehow feels like the final, quiet insult. I'm sitting on the living room floor, tracing the patterns in the hardwood with my eyes. The silence is the loudest thing in here now, punctuated only by the hum of the refrigerator. My gaze keeps snagging on the walls, on the faintly lighter squares of paint that mark where our life together used to hang in cheap frames. The ghosts of our picture frames. I haven't cried yet. I feel strangely detached, like a medical examiner arriving at a scene. My job isn't to grieve, it's to determine the cause of death. I'm performing an emotional autopsy on us, and I know the exact moment the heart stopped beating. I can pinpoint it with clinical precision. Time of death. Last Tuesday, 8:47 p.m. The immediate cause? A single, catastrophic text message. A joke I thought was clever. A little piece of casual cruelty I typed out with my thumbs, sent to the one person in the world who was never supposed to see it. To understand the autopsy, you have to understand the patient. On paper, us was perfectly healthy. Tyler and we were the couple our friends pointed to as proof that stability wasn't boring. He's a software developer, a neat, tidy box that fits him perfectly. He's logical, kind, and steady in a way that I always claimed to admire. Every night, without fail, he put a fresh glass of water on my bedside table. He listened, truly listened, to my convoluted stories about agency politics and difficult clients. His brow furrowed in concentration even when I knew the jargon was meaningless to him. He was a genuinely good man. I need you to understand that, because it makes what I did so much worse. Our life was a comfortable rhythm of shared Netflix queues, Sunday morning coffee, and inside jokes that had lost their original meaning but remained as comforting rituals. We had plans. Vague, sun-drenched plans involving a mortgage, maybe a dog, a future that unfolded with the gentle predictability of a well-coded program. He was building us a life, brick by dependable brick. But somewhere along the line, my gratitude for his steadiness curdled into a quiet, secret condescension. I began to see his uncomplicated love not as a strength, but as a lack of dimension. I'm a senior strategist at a branding agency. My entire job is to analyze nuance, to find the hidden meanings, the complex emotional drivers behind why people want what they want. I saw the world in shades of gray, while Tyler, in my increasingly arrogant view, saw it in primary colors. This created a subtle but corrosive superiority complex within me. I was the complex, layered protagonist, and he was the sweet, dependable supporting character in my story. And then there was Luke, Tyler's best friend since college. Luke manages an independent bookstore downtown, the kind that smells of aging paper and dark roast coffee. He's all wiry energy, ironic tattoos snaking out from under his rolled-up sleeves, and a vocabulary peppered with words you have to look up later. He was the antithesis of Tyler's calm predictability. Where Tyler built stable code, Luke deconstructed postmodern literature. The first time we all had dinner together, I watched Tyler passionately explain the elegance of a new programming language, while Luke and I exchanged a silent, knowing glance over the rim of our wine glasses. In that glance, a dangerous little club was formed. The two of us, the ones who got it. Meeting him, for me, was like spending your whole life drinking filtered tap water and then someone hands you a glass of smoky, single malt scotch. It burns a little, but it makes you feel alive. And I was starting to realize just how thirsty I was. The pathology began with an excuse. A book Luke had mentioned at dinner. I sent him a message, a simple, "Hey, what was the name of that author you were talking about?" It was innocent, plausible, but the thrill of hitting send on a private message to him, with Tyler sitting right next to me on the sofa, was a small, sharp shock to my system. A little spark in the digital quiet of my life. His reply came instantly, and soon we were discussing the book's themes. It was a conversation I could never have with Tyler, who once famously described Moby Dick as a long, inefficient way to go fishing. With Luke, I could use words like liminal and intertextuality, and he wouldn't just understand. He would build on it, challenge it, make me feel sharper, wittier. That was the entry point, the intellectual rapport. Soon, our chat thread became my secret garden. I started by complaining about work. Tyler, when I complained to him, would go into problem-solving mode. "Why don't you just set up a meeting with HR?" Or, "Have you tried outlining your concerns in an email?" He wanted to fix it. Luke just listened. He'd reply with things like, "That's infuriating. They're clearly threatened by your competence." One was a solution, the other was validation. I was starving for validation. The conversation, inevitably, drifted toward Tyler. I never started with a direct attack. It was always couched in affection, a performance of loving frustration. "Tyler is the best man I know," I'd type, "but he just doesn't get the pressure I'm under." Luke, masterfully, would never agree outright. He'd say, "He's a good guy, he just operates on a different frequency." Or, "It must be difficult when your partner can't meet you on that intellectual level." He wasn't the villain. He was the co-conspirator, the sympathetic audience who confirmed my deepest, most arrogant belief: that I was special, and my partner, while sweet, was simple. I remember one night with perfect, damning clarity. Tyler had spent the afternoon making my favorite dish, a ridiculously complicated carbonara from scratch. He was so proud, humming off-key in the kitchen, the whole apartment smelling of garlic and pancetta. He presented the plate to me with a flourish, a big, goofy grin on his face. And as I sat there, tasting this perfect, loving meal, my primary thought was not of gratitude. It was, how do I phrase this for Luke? While Tyler was telling me about a bug he'd fixed at work, I was under the table, thumbs flying across my phone screen. "He made the carbonara again," I typed to Luke. It's his go-to grand gesture, so sweet but so linear. It's like his love language is a recipe he follows step by step. Adorable, really. I justified it all, of course. This wasn't a betrayal, it was analysis. It was a harmless outlet that allowed me to appreciate Tyler's simplicity without being suffocated by it. Luke and I weren't flirting. We were engaging in a sociological study of our own lives. I told myself I was in complete control, the brilliant strategist managing all the emotional variables. But I wasn't managing anything. I was cultivating a parasite, feeding it my partner's love and my own ego, and calling it a friendship. The symptoms, at first, were subtle. A slight cooling in my affection. A hesitation before I kissed Tyler goodbye in the morning. He wasn't a man who missed details. His entire career was built on spotting anomalies in lines of code. He started noticing the anomalies in me. "You seem distant lately," he said one evening, his voice gentle, not accusatory. We were washing dishes, a domestic scene so normal it felt like a stage play. "Just stressed with the new campaign at work," I replied, the lie slipping out with practiced ease. "It's a total nightmare." This was the new pattern. He would sense a problem, and I would misdirect, using my intelligence not to connect, but to build a wall of plausible deniability. My conversations with Luke had given me a PhD in my own bullshit. I could articulate my stress with such convincing detail, citing specific emails and client demands, that Tyler had no choice but to back off, his brow creased with concern for me. He'd rub my shoulders and say, "You're taking on too much," never suspecting that the real weight I was carrying was the phone in my pocket. My superiority complex was now in full bloom. I saw his attempts at connection as simplistic intrusions. He'd try to plan a date night, and I'd think, he's just following the "how to fix your relationship" checklist. He'd buy me flowers, and I'd text Luke a picture with the caption, "Standard protocol initiated." My secret language with Luke was a constant, running commentary that belittled every sincere gesture Tyler made. We were the cool kids in the back of the classroom, passing notes and snickering at the earnest teacher's pet at the front. The boundary between my two worlds grew dangerously thin. I'd be laughing at a joke Luke sent me, and Tyler would walk in and ask what was funny. "Oh, just a stupid meme a coworker sent," I'd say, my heart giving a little jolt of adrenaline. It was a thrill, a tightrope walk. I convinced myself that the danger was part of the appeal, a testament to how smart I was to be able to manage this complex, double-layered existence. I was playing a game, and the fact that Tyler didn't even know he was a piece on the board only confirmed my intellectual dominance. I wasn't just his partner anymore. I was his benevolent, secretive puppet master, and I was about to get my strings hopelessly tangled. The inciting incident, the moment the scalpel slipped, was our anniversary, our 5th. Tyler, in his earnest, predictable way, believed in celebrating milestones. I'd always found it a bit cheesy, but I played along. This year, however, he seemed determined to do something special. He'd been dropping clumsy hints for weeks, a quiet excitement humming around him that I willfully ignored. That evening, he told me to close my eyes. When I opened them, he was holding a gift. It wasn't jewelry or a trip. It was a book. A first edition, hardcover copy of a poetry collection I'd mentioned loving in college, something I'd idly told him once was impossible to find. My heart gave a genuine, unexpected lurch. He remembered. He had spent months, he explained, tracking it down through online forums and rare book dealers. His face was open, hopeful, so proud of this tangible proof of his attention, of his love. "I know you're more of a Kindle girl now," he said a little shyly, "but I thought you'd like to have the real thing." And I did. For a pure, unadulterated second, I was moved. Deeply. The strategist in my head went quiet, and I just saw the man I loved, who had gone to absurd lengths to make me happy. But then, the addiction kicked in. The compulsion. The need to frame this moment, to filter it through the lens of my secret narrative. The first thought that followed the wave of affection was, Luke would appreciate the poetry of this gesture. The second was, I need to tell him. I hugged Tyler, thanked him profusely, and then, under the guise of wanting to take a picture of the beautiful cover, I retreated to the kitchen. My thumbs moved with a life of their own, my brain already composing the perfect, witty observation. I snapped a photo of the book and sent it to Luke. The text I wrote underneath it was a masterpiece of casual condescension, the culmination of months of practice. "Look," I typed, a smug little smile on my face. "He's trying to love me in analog. It's like a textbook case study in earnestness. A little bit cute, a little bit tragic, don't you think?" I hit send, and a moment later, my own phone buzzed in my hand with the notification of a new message from Tyler, who was standing not 20 feet away in the living room. My blood went cold. I looked down. There on my screen, under the picture of the book he had just given me, were my own cruel words. Delivered. The silence that followed was absolute. It wasn't an angry silence. It was the sterile, airless silence of a vacuum. I looked up from my phone, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Tyler was standing by the bookshelf, his back to me. He hadn't moved. He just stood there, perfectly still, for what felt like a decade. Then, slowly, he turned around. His face was blank. Utterly, terrifyingly blank. There was no rage, no tears, no accusation. It was the face of a system that had encountered a fatal error and simply shut down. He walked over to the coffee table, picked up his phone, and looked at the screen. He read my message again, his eyes moving slowly across the words as if they were in a foreign language he was trying to decipher. He then placed the phone back on the table, screen down, with a quiet finality. He looked at me, and his eyes were not the eyes of the man I knew. All the warmth, all the patient affection was gone. They were just empty. "I always knew I wasn't the most exciting man, Tabitha," he said, and his voice was unnervingly calm. It was the voice you use to report a traffic accident. Factual, devoid of emotion. "I knew I didn't get your jokes sometimes, or that I didn't care about the same books. But I thought the love I gave you, as simple as it was at least worthy of respect." He paused, taking a breath. "To see you describe it as tragic, to have you and my best friend analyze it like some pathetic science experiment, that's not something I can fix. That's not a communication issue, it's a respect issue." He looked at the book, the one he'd spent months finding. "I'm tired," he said, and the two words landed with the weight of a tombstone. I can't be in a relationship where my sincerity is the punchline to a joke I'm not even in on. And that was it. That was the entire confrontation. No yelling, no pleading. Just a quiet, devastating statement of fact. He had seen the rot at the core of our relationship, and he wasn't going to try and salvage it. He was a man of principle, and I had violated his most fundamental one, the principle that love, in its purest form, deserves to be treated with dignity. He slept on the couch that night. The next morning, when I came out of the bedroom, there were 3 cardboard boxes on the floor. He was already packing. Now, back in the echoing silence of the apartment, I finally do what I should have done months ago. I open my chat history with Luke. But this time, I'm not a participant. I am the medical examiner, scrolling back through the endless digital tape of my own betrayal, looking for the first sign of the disease. It's all here. Every smug comment, every shared eye-roll emoji, every seemingly innocent complaint that was actually a calculated chisel, chipping away at the foundation of my relationship with Tyler. I scroll and scroll, my own words blurring into a monstrous monologue of arrogance. He's so sweet, he tried to make sushi tonight. It was a disaster, but you have to admire the effort, right? Face with tears of joy. Just had to sit through another one of his friend's boring stories. Send help or whine. He just called a film visually stunning. I think that's the deepest he goes, haha. Reading it now, stripped of the context of my self-serving justifications, it's horrifying. It's not the log of a friendship, it's evidence. Exhibit A in the case of my own emotional vandalism. I wasn't seeking a confidant, I was seeking an audience. I was performing my superiority for Luke, using my relationship as a prop. Tyler wasn't just my partner, he was my source material, the unwitting straight man in the sophisticated, ironic comedy I was starring in. And Luke, his replies are a masterclass in passive validation. Never explicitly agreeing, never being the one to cast the first stone, but always stoking the fire. You're too smart for your own good, Tabitha. He's lucky to have someone so patient. You deserve to be intellectually stimulated. He wasn't seducing me with compliments. He was seducing me with an inflated version of myself. The most damning realization is that it was never about Luke. It was about me. He was just a mirror, reflecting the clever, complex, misunderstood woman I so desperately wanted to be. I didn't want him, I wanted his validation. And to get it, I had taken the most genuine thing in my life, Tyler's steady, unconditional love, and I had hollowed it out, turning it into a cheap anecdote to impress another man. The autopsy is complete. The cause of death wasn't a text message. It was 1,000 tiny cuts of disrespect, administered by my own hand. The text was just the moment the body finally bled out. There's no grand revelation at the end of this autopsy, no cathartic breakdown that leads to healing. There is only the cold, hard clinical report. I am sitting on the floor of my empty life, and the only thing I have for company is the suffocating clarity of my own failure. My phone lies on the floor beside me. For the past hour, I've been composing a message to Tyler. Not a plea to take me back, but an apology. It's a brilliant piece of writing. It's insightful, self-aware, and uses all the correct psychological terms. I dissect my own cognitive dissonance, my narcissistic tendencies, my fear of emotional simplicity. It's a perfect, academic analysis of why I am a terrible person. But I know, with a certainty that chills me to the bone, that I will never send it. Because I realize this message is just another performance. It's the final act. It's me, the master strategist, trying to win the post-game analysis. Look, it screams, look how well I understand my own flaws. Look how intelligently I can articulate my remorse. Am I not the most fascinatingly self-destructive person you've ever known? It's the same poison in a different bottle, so I delete it, word by word, the entire eloquent confession. I erase it until the screen is blank. I am trapped in a loop. The very intelligence that allowed me to orchestrate this entire mess is the same intelligence that now provides a perfect, running commentary on the wreckage, preventing any genuine, simple feeling of regret. I can see the cage, I can describe its bars in exquisite detail, but I can't seem to find the door. The apartment is quiet. The ghosts of the picture frames stare back at me from the walls. I have my diagnosis, a detailed and flawless emotional autopsy report. But the patient is dead, and the doctor, the murderer, is one and the same. And she is left with nothing but the terrible, suffocating knowledge of exactly how it all went wrong.